So I brought together a panel today of some varying perspectives, all very accomplished people from the industry who are going to be able to tell us from their own unique perspective about how they're promoting their program, how they're really gauging success of what they're doing across the business. So without further ado, I want to get into some introductions. I've got a great group here, and I'm really excited to get you introduced to all of them. So I want to turn first to my good friend Keeley down in Dallas, Texas. So Keeley, you're actually not on lockdown right now like we are here in California. I'm sure you're enjoying that a little bit. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to with the Global Solutions Center down there in Dallas.
Hey, Marshall. No, we're not on lockdown, but of course, being very responsible, wearing our masks and going out as infrequently as possible. A little bit about myself first, and then a little bit about the Global Solutions Center. So I am Keeley Lundquist, part of the Global Solutions Center in Dallas. Now, if you've been part of the fall tour for ABPM, we have hosted twice in the last, let's say, 5 or 6 years. And so very likely that you are familiar with our center. If not, it's Texas, come on down. So the last 22 years with IBM is the span of my career. And I have had about 6 different roles. One role was for quite a while as a client advocate, which is very similar to a briefing manager with a little bit of extra project management thrown in. My current role is Center Experience Leader, and by far one of my, definitely my favorite. Don't tell them I love it so much. I want them to continue the paycheck. But what that role really focuses on is what does the space look like? What is the decor? The AV equipment, is it premium? Is it running well? The digital content, the creation of it if necessary, and then also due to COVID, what are we doing around virtual experience and how can we put our best foot forward? So that's really my role in a nutshell. To clarify, we are a solution center, we're not a briefing center. So that's a little bit different. And the way in which it is different is that we have a team of about 60 to 70 folks, IT architects, specialists. We do have a design team. And so those folks all are contributing to creating solutions, integrated industry solutions. And we have about 100 of those in our portfolio. And so, and then finally, we're very proud. We, a few years ago, won World Class Center from ABPM, and we are the only IBM location to have done so far. So pretty proud of that, Marshall.
As you should be, Keeley, and well-deserved. Your center down there in Dallas is such an impressive environment. I mean, it really feels like every time I go in there, it's been purpose-built for whoever the customer is that you're hosting that day, whether it's American Airlines or AT&T, it just is totally curated for whatever that conversation is. So we're going to get into a little bit about that, but just wanted to say thank you for being here. I'm really excited to get your perspective on some of these topics today. I know our audience is going to love it. So moving right along here, I want to go to Stacey next. So Stacey is also joining us from here in Silicon Valley. Stacey and I have had the opportunity to work together at a number of different programs of different sizes and disciplines over the years. Done some pretty impressive work that Stacey definitely gets all the credit for. But Stacey, thanks for being here today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to with Cohesity now.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Marshall. So hi, everyone. Stacey Milligan with Cohesity. I'm the director of their executive briefing program. And Cohesity is based here in Silicon Valley in downtown San Jose, as Marshall said, very, very close to their headquarters. So I've been there about a year, and so we're a very young program. The program really didn't exist before I came on board. So I spent the last year really building the program from the ground up and putting those foundational building blocks in place, keeping in mind the ABPM world-class characteristics. So a lot of work to still do there, but it's been really a fun journey. So when I talk about all those foundational building blocks, it's, the rules of engagement and marketing the program and, putting all those pieces in place and putting the strategy of the program together. And then also working on the tools, the metrics. So we use Briefing Source. So getting that in place has been fun as well. So that's been fun. And we do not have a physical center, even when we were having meetings in person. So we shared the various boardrooms with our exec staff. So there were plans, I think, initially prior to COVID to expand, but obviously those were put on hold. So to be determined. Prior to Cohesity, I've been in the EBC industry for over 20 years, a variety of different roles at a lot of different companies, almost all of them enterprise companies. And it's been really fun each company has, a different step in their journey of maturity in terms of their program. So some of them, such as McAfee, I was able to build their program from the ground up and then also build their center from the ground up. And I did that at their headquarters in Santa Clara and then did the same thing for their Amsterdam headquarters. So ran that global program and then did the same most recently at Hitachi. So built their Santa Clara headquarters and we had a global presence in London as well. So that's been wonderful. And then other programs that I've been with have been, more mature and more established. So it's coming in and optimizing those and then working perhaps on some of the redesign plans, to make sure that that center is doing its best work and staying fresh and staying with the times and putting our best foot forward. So overall, really in each of the programs, it's been a lot of fun, working on program adoption, driving further adoption, marketing the program, and just really looking at different proactive offerings to keep the field engaged with the program.
Fantastic. That's great, Stacey. I know that this, where you're at right now with Cohesity, as far as launching this new program, really defining what it is exactly is going to be really helpful for the audience as far as applying those lessons that you've picked up along the way at some of the best programs I've ever seen. So I'm really excited to get into some of these topics. Thanks for being here today. So last but certainly not least, I've got our friend Ryan Farsai, also here in Silicon Valley. We've got a strong California contingent today. We gotta stick together in these times for sure. So Ryan, we're stoked to have you join the conversation. You're pretty unique in this audience and as far as who I interact with on a regular basis in terms of our clientele at Signet. What's exciting for me is that you represent a traditional marketer's role, right? So you're a core part of the marketing organization, but you have a background in briefing centers and really understand the unique value prop that they bring to the table. So this is going to be interesting to get your thoughts on some of these things. But before we get into it, why don't you give me an intro of yourself and Proofpoint and a little bit about what you're doing related to the customer program there right now.
Sure. So yeah, happy to be here and happy to provide that unique perspective too. So as Marshall said, Ryan Farsai, I'm the Director of Corporate Marketing Communications and Brand over at Proofpoint. Proofpoint is a cybersecurity company. And the teams that roll up under me are creative services and brand, corporate video, integrated marketing, go-to-market strategy, and then the global content teams. So I've got all of the different outbound marketing communication teams and channels and assets and stuff flow through my team, and it makes it perfect for feeding into briefing centers. So I've been there for about almost 4 years. Prior to that is where I actually got started and introduced into the EBC world, and that was over at Juniper Networks, where I had a very similar role, managing the content teams, managing the creative teams, and had kind of a little bit of a funny story. I was airdropped into what was multi-million-dollar facility, but all the screens were blank, right? The systems that they had initially kind of contracted and thought were going to make something great happen there sort of weren't working, right? And they weren't plugged into the marketing world, and they weren't plugged into the content world. So I was kind of airdropped in as being kind of a digital guy and having all the ties to all the content and all that stuff flowing through my teams. And we went and built a beautiful center that went on to win multiple ABPM awards while I was there and even after. That's how I got connected with Marshall and the team and really brought that center to life. So I've got the unique opportunity to do that again over at Proofpoint. We've got 2 brand new buildings that came online literally 2 weeks ago. So we're in the process of adding all the great cool things that we've done in the past at Juniper over at Proofpoint now and building that into a world-class center as well.
Fantastic, Ryan. Excited to have you here today. I know this is going to be valuable for the audience, so appreciate you making some time. And So thanks for the introductions, y'all, and now it's time to get to work. So, like I mentioned at the top of the call here, 2020 has provided this unique opportunity. Prior to this year, I spent a lot of time on planes, getting in front of customers, and as I say, that is the preferred medium. However, the silver lining there is the velocity of conversations that we've been able to have. I think customer briefing programs, not just sales folks like myself, but the actual programs have seen this uptick in the velocity of conversations that we were able to have, the frequency of those conversations where we're not on planes, we're not having to coordinate schedules with travel and things like that. So as we reach the end of the year, kind of this milestone for 2020, the conversation starting to shift to those end of year reviews in terms of performance and budget. And we're looking at a very different landscape than we were at a year ago. And really a refrain that I've been hearing over and over again is really a basic thing, and I think it's so fundamental that we understand this topic as we all look to planning for the future and consider what the role of the customer briefing program is in this new world. So what I want to talk about is something that should be very simple, but is definitely powerful as far as driving the success and support of your program internally, is the actual value proposition. I want to talk about the value proposition of the customer program across these different disciplines and industries. I know there's going to be some commonalities and some differences across, but I think this will be valuable to hear your perspectives. So first I want to go to Stacey. Stacey, this is fresh on the mind, if you will. You've been grinding over the last few months trying to build this new program. You not only have the job of building the program itself, but also educating an internal team, or teams, I should say, about what a briefing program is and what it provides for the business and when to engage and how to engage. So I think you'll offer a really great perspective here on what the core value proposition is. And maybe you can just tell it to me like you would describe it to a CEO or somebody who's never even heard of an executive briefing program before. What do you think, Stacey?
Sure. I'll take a crack at that. So I think, for Cohesity, the value proposition for our program, and which is really similar to a lot of the other enterprise programs that I've been at previously, is really creating a compelling, engaging customer experience that exceeds your customers' expectations, but also accelerates the sales cycle for the sales team. And that's really achieved through a custom engagement, which is, I always like to differentiate it from, say, a field marketing event or another type of marketing event, that it is a one-to-one engagement. It's a higher stakes engagement. It's a higher touch engagement, as I said. So, in addressing a particular customer's needs. And so that really hasn't changed. And that hasn't changed for my program for 2020. I think the additional piece for us is really elevating the customer perception of the company. I think, your brand comes to life through the briefing program. And particularly for us as a startup, we want to make sure that customers understand our value proposition, what our unique differentiators are. And that's really achieved through the interactions that happen through the EBC program. A lot of our competitors are larger enterprise companies, so it's especially important that we are delivering that message. And just thinking about 2020, for me, I think transitioning to the virtual format that we have now has been a very positive thing. As I really do focus on growth, being a younger program, I wanted to get my numbers up, get the number of engagements up, get more face time in front of the field, and get them to understand what this value proposition is. It's been great. I think we have more accessibility. We have the ability to turn things around quicker and do more engagements, as I said. And so that was one of the top things when I do meet with sales teams, is to let them know that, yes, we are still a very impactful program. And so, leading with that value proposition, backing up with metrics has been very important. I think the other big change that I've seen is, as we did go through this transition and having to transition to 100% virtual, there was probably a little bit of uncertainty that, is this still going to be impactful? Is it still going to be a great experience for our customers? So I found that a lot of our execs and a lot of our product teams are preferring and really channeling a lot of the customer engagements, especially those higher level strategic ones where the reps might have gone direct to them, but they're really funneling them through the briefing program because they know it's going to be a great experience. It's going to be, there's high standards of consistency, and they know what to expect, and they know that they're going to be prepped for success. So those are some of the bigger changes I've been seeing, but those are all positive.
That's great, Stacey, and that's powerful stuff. I mean, the way you say it, it's so succinct and simple the way it sounds. I mean, account reps, if you want to make more money, come talk to Stacey. I love it. It makes perfect sense to me. So on the other hand, we have Keeley down in Dallas. Keeley is representing a very different program than the one that Stacey operates. So as you stated, this is a solution center, right, Keeley? So tell us a little bit about what makes you unique and how you measure whether you're being successful or not. What are you pointing to? You know, how would you explain that to somebody who might not know what it is that you do and how it fits into your daily life?
Right. So certainly everything I say will be through the lens of a solution center. Really, it's a culmination of just the strong technical and industry skills. The team that we have, I think, is really our heart and our core of our value. Of course, the premium space and the experience that we provide, whether it's here or virtual. And then bringing the best of IBM together, I think, is one of the greatest things that we do. We've done it for the last 20 to 30 years that this group has been around in IBM. And, it's a big company to traverse. And so getting the best folks in the room and putting that message together is a really powerful thing. And at the end of the day, whether we're going inbound or outbound, which we've done pre-COVID, we would go to the customer as well. To me, the biggest thing is the fact that we've never been busier. So yes, COVID's impacted a lot of us. We're living day to day differently. But in terms of our value prop, I think that's a rather strong statement.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Keeley. And I know that we're looking forward to getting you back in the center so you can leverage that amazing environment. But I think those themes of offering that standard of excellence, the best in class experience for your internal teams and the partners that they support, I know that's so powerful. So still going 100 miles a minute for sure. So thank you for that. I want to get into some of those things that you touched on a little bit further into this. So that leaves Ryan for us. And Ryan, you're really architecting a program right now. You're defining what the program's mission is within the Proofpoint organization. So this should be very relevant for you as far as how you're communicating that to executive teams and really, defining why a briefing program is necessary in the first place. So talk me through some of how you've been presenting that and what's been resonating with your teams at Proofpoint as far as the value of the customer program and how you communicate that.
Yeah, so the fundamental elements haven't changed for the briefing center programs, right? It's to go and provide a unique experience. It's to give them exposure to executives, to help really close the deal in the most fabulous way possible, right? So those elements haven't changed. What has changed are the venue that is served up in, right, and becoming virtual, and that's actually spawned a need for the perception and the curb appeal of the company to be so much more important, right? Because that's the only shot you're getting. Most salespeople, certainly in Proofpoint, are not allowed to travel to a lot of different regions, right? Certainly, the whole plane thing is being discouraged, and it's made it a lot more difficult. So what's ended up happening is a lot more EBCs and briefing centers have been scheduled, and then those customers by default have fortunately gotten the access to executives and the kind of that preferential treatment where they wouldn't have normally gotten it. So there's way more EBCs happening right now, and that's kind of the only shot that they're getting. So that perception, that curb appeal, that brand experience has become so much more important. That's really the biggest change we've seen. But there's also a lot more opportunity for these kinds of experiences to happen, more so than ever before, right? Before you're limited with physical space, meeting rooms, executive times. Now with almost everybody being virtual, you can start to pile on those meetings, and you're not limited by physical space anymore. And you're also not limited by executives having to move back and forth between different buildings or prep for different meetings. You're able to actually pack them a little bit more tighter so they get more exposure to customers.
Makes sense to me, Ryan. So I want to have a follow-up question for you. In our discussion recently, we talked about the briefing center or the program itself actually being similar to what a public website might actually represent for a business. Can you kind of recap that for the audience? Tell me kind of what you were thinking there. I think that would be a valuable anecdote for us.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I mean, when you go to a public website, you know, that's the shot you get, right? You have to show your perception there. You've got to make sure it counts. So, you know, making sure that experience holistically is brought through is super important, right? You know, one of the other big things for EBCs are cross-selling, certainly from a marketing perspective, right? That's our main charter in helping sales, right? Is one, getting them the content they need, helping them close a deal, but also helping them cross-sell. So, you know, EBCs are a perfect opportunity because you've got these companies that are so far down the pipe, they're so far down the funnel that, you know, introducing them to a cross-sell opportunity is so much easier. But you know what, you've got to do that through providing you know, different elements and marketing elements that help get them through the funnel for that particular product set too. So all that becomes super important.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Ryan. So wrapping up some of those points, I just want to do a quick recap here. Some of the things that have really resonated with me through our preparation for this conversation and other conversations I've been having with the audience and the industry at large. So obviously there's a core principle of accelerating business. And when I think about accelerating business, it's a pretty basic concept, not necessarily easy to do, but something that should be easy to understand. So in terms of the customer program's impact on the actual pipeline, so shortening the duration of the deal, the time to close, increasing the amount of that value of the deal is an obvious opportunity for the program to provide value, uncovering those cross-sell and upsell opportunities like Ryan just mentioned, you know, having these conversations that give us the opportunity to get in deep to the unique approach to value that the host company might be offering through rich content experiences and having your best subject matter experts present those. That's, of course, fundamental to the value the program drives. Also, a little bit softer elements, so the relationship building, providing this forum for real human interaction in the types of conversations that are really going to build relationships and turn your prospects and customers into those people who are going to become your evangelists over time as they get informed and educated about what it is that you do and your unique approach to getting there. Of course, retaining customers, 2020 has maybe been a retention year for a lot of firms out there, not necessarily looking at growth in the same way that we were in 2019. It's all about keeping the customers that we have and nurturing them and providing the most value possible. And so bringing in stakeholders to those conversations, you know, executive leadership, the people that really are going to need to hear and understand what the customer's challenges are, and really incorporate those into strategy, which ties neatly into my last point here about voice of the customer. So having those real talk conversations, those real human to human interactions, meaningful conversations, not just looking at PowerPoints or going through a standard sales pitch. You know, those are going to be the conversations, the information that you uncover that's going to inform your strategy as a business. I mean, this is really fundamental, getting your kind of key stakeholders in front of your most valuable clients and having them tell you what they need, what's working, what's not working. And that's really going to inform the roadmap going into the future. I know that's the way it works at Signet, and that's true for so many companies across the landscape. So moving right along here, guys, understanding the value proposition, of course, that's going to be valuable. But how do we actually measure that? How do we prove the value through data points and other factors that we can point to along the way to really gauge the success of the program? How do we know whether we're doing our job? So, Stacey, again, I want to start with you here. This is fresh on the mind. I want to start with, tell me what organizational pillar you actually roll up to. Are you into sales and marketing? And then, you know, from there, tell me a little bit about what you're presenting to show the impact and the success of your program on the business overall.
Yes, so I report into marketing and particularly field marketing. So I think 15 of my counterparts on my team all work on field events, and they work on demand gen activity. So I kind of am on my own little island, and my boss has been very clear, obviously, that my focus is deal acceleration, you know, in addition to generating pipeline, but just a little bit different. And so recently I have finally gotten to a great point where I have some really great, solid, very comprehensive dashboards that I have rolled up to our exec team. And they didn't exist before I came on board. I was able to, thankfully, through using Briefing Source, pull in all of the data from a previous year. So now I have some great year over year, quarter over quarter comparisons. So that's been just really exciting and something I've been excited to present and share out throughout marketing, to our exec staff, and throughout the company. And I'm getting a lot of great questions on that. But overall, what I measure, I do it over a couple different slices of time. And then I have 8 different core data points and data sets that I look at. Some of just the foundational product or foundational elements of the program. So that could be just number of briefings. And again, looking quarter over quarter, year over year. What are the topics, so we can start looking at trending. And just, by geography, how are we doing business? But really at the highest level, and I think one of the most important metrics are things I'm sure a lot of people capture. So revenue, that really is the number one. How many bookings resulted from briefings? And so when we think about the ABPM multi-client data, what this really speaks to, points to, and supports is that briefings do impact business. They do close deals. So that's probably the number one. And I do that, look at that, quarterly and then year to date. And then the second one is pipeline. So what pipeline has been opened as a result of these opportunities? And I do that for current quarter and then look 4 to 5 quarters out into the future. And what that really demonstrates is, as we all know, and again, the ABPM multi-client study calls it out, is that briefings do generate additional opportunities as a result of the engagement. So that's a pretty clear, cut and dried metric that everybody loves to see. And obviously it changes quite a bit, but the dashboard that I built with my marketing ops counterpart, at the click of a button, I can see it in real time. It's updated quite regularly. I think it's most important at the end of the quarter when you see some deals, maybe slip into the next quarter. It's always important to do that refresh. And then I think that my favorite stat is deal velocity. So I said this is kind of the holy grail that I've been trying to do at a bunch of different companies that always seemed pretty complicated, but my marketing ops guy was willing to put the time in. So that's probably the most important stat for the program. And what we did was we took a look at EBC opportunities or accounts that had an EBC opportunity, and then went into Salesforce and found lookalike accounts that did not have an EBC opportunity. And we were able to show that the close time for the accounts that had an EBC was significantly shorter. So that's a really fun graph. That's what I'm probably most excited and most proud to share. And then overall, just looking at, what are the top 5 wins over $1 million year to date? And just I have a slew of metrics. I have a long list, and I had provided that to my marketing ops analyst and said, which of these can you do? Can you do all of them? And he came back currently with about 80% of them. And then we're working on the other 20%. So my recommendation to everybody would be, if you don't have dashboards, just make that request, start engaging with your marketing ops organization. And they were more than excited to work on something other than QBR data and something new and something exciting. And you can really see the impact directly on customers, on bookings, and the bottom line for the company. So that's been pretty exciting.
Exciting indeed. I know only a few years ago, a dashboard like what you're describing is something that we only could have imagined, something we may have worked towards, but would have been nearly impossible to pull together. So it's really cool to see kind of the promise of these business intelligence tools actually realizing, actually being able to use that to drive and measure the business that we're impacting. So that's really exciting. And I can't wait to see what the finished product looks like as you kind of round that out and pull it all together. So thanks for that, Stacey. I know that's valuable for the audience. Keeley, you're next up here in the Solution Center. Talk to me a little bit about what you're doing. How do you know if you're doing your job down there in Dallas? What are some data points and other maybe softer areas that you look at to determine the success of what you're doing in the GSC?
Right. Well, they'll certainly tell us if we're not doing our job, right? The KPIs that we're tracking on our dashboard are very similar to what Stacey has mentioned. Like customer engagement, influenced revenue. Let's just say we typically do about 2,000 visitors a year. I think that number might be impacted by COVID if you want to kind of think about how these numbers might shift due to what, our world circumstances. Our win rate is something that we keep track of and that we're pretty proud of. And then year-to-year visits, we've had a 36% year-to-year shift up in customers visiting. And so I'll be interested to see, what we do, what that number looks like and any sort of other data that we might be looking at just due to the major shift this year. The other thing that we look at is Net Promoter Score. Now, IBM has a whole program around Net Promoter Score, and we therefore do an NPS around what the sales team or the folks that we're interacting with within IBM, how they're perceiving us. And that's where we get a lot of our data as to how we're doing with our customers. And also a lot of that input, it goes into our plans and our strategies going forward. So that's kind of our approach, Marshall.
Fantastic, Keeley. Thank you. Thank you. So Ryan, I'm going to switch to you here. You represent a slightly higher level perspective. You know, you're not necessarily in the trenches dealing with these numbers day to day. So I think you can kind of help us zoom out a little bit and think about the executive stakeholder role and how they're looking at the success of the program. Talk to me a little bit about that and how you're looking at success for the program at Proofpoint.
Sure. So there's 2 points, right? So the first one is the thing that gets the executives, or certainly even gets marketing engaged and perks our interest, right? And that is, you know, how many deals end up going through the briefing centers, what the percentage of close rate is. It's usually something like 95, something really, really high. Those are the first things that grab executives' attention and marketing's attention and motivates us to go in and help. The second thing, and what I care most about, is the feedback loop, right? How the surveys are reporting back, how the speakers did, how the content did, how the overall perception of the EBC was, and the engagement platform, even some of the materials that they were served through any of the digital content screens or directly to them pre or post event. Those are the things we look at first and foremost from a marketing perspective, you know, because at the end of the day, like I referenced, this is its own funnel. It's the most pure form of account-based marketing for us, right? Because we've got you know, these high dollar, already pre-identified, you know, lucrative customers that are coming in, and, you know, getting the right content in front of them, making sure that they had positive feedback, and then making adjustments where they maybe didn't have as positive feedback is top for our list, right? And again, I'll bring it back to cross-selling opportunities. You know, if there's a particular piece of content that we'll go in and test with them that resonated, those are opportunities to then go and serve them more things and bring them into a different funnel stream to hopefully cross-sell.
Awesome, Ryan. I think that's really important that we take a step back occasionally, like you mentioned here, and look at a high level some of the impact that these programs are having on the business. It's often so easy to get very focused on this niche of what we occupy in the industry as far as these executive customer programs. But I think it's really important to remember that we need to frame the conversation in vocabulary and context that's going to resonate with stakeholders and leadership that are ultimately kind of making decisions further up the food chain than our program. So that's a great perspective there, and I think is going to be valuable for the audience. And so really summing this up here, it's a fairly simple concept. You know, if we look at these data points, that the panel's done a great job of calling out in terms of what they're looking at and prioritizing as far as their metrics gauging success. It's all about demonstrating those data points, backing that up through real numbers. If you can demonstrate your impact on the pipeline, on the customer perception, that might be a little bit softer, harder to quantify, if you will. But through means like feedback and surveying, like Ryan spoke to, there are ways that we can track that and determine whether we have areas for improvement or maybe need to double down in certain areas of the program. So cross-sell and upsell, deal generation, like Ryan mentioned, the close rate, deal velocity is what Stacey's really focused on. And of course, customer feedback and references that are not only going to influence future customers who may come from a similar industry or perspective as somebody in your existing portfolio, but also really drive internal teams to give attention and recognition to the briefing program as far as their impact on the actual business. So moving right along here, I think there's some things I want to spend some time on. So thanks for this high level overview, guys. I think that was a great way to set the stage as far as this conversation. But my excitement about the panel is, the diversity of backgrounds and the diversity of the companies that you actually represent. So we have everything from IBM, one of the best known brands in the world, to Cohesity and Proofpoint, that are these in Silicon Valley world, at least, what we consider to be late stage startups, public, about to be public, perhaps. We'll see about that. But yeah, really just driving awareness and recognition of the program with those internal leaders. So what are we doing to actually kind of promote the program and stand out and really ensure that what we're doing, this very valuable work that we're doing, is getting the attention and the support that it deserves internally? So Keeley, you have a really interesting program at the GSC, and your challenge is to stand out in a very noisy and crowded landscape at IBM. I mean, Big Blue is just that. It's a behemoth. You've got probably over 100 client centers that you have to offer your customers in different geographies and industries. A sales force of massive proportions. You have more than 40,000 sales reps out there in the field trying to bring in deals and close them. What are you doing to stand out from that crowd, to really make your presence known, like you have, right? As we say, you're the only world-class, award-winning center in the IBM family. What have you been doing to really set yourself apart and make sure that people know it?
Right. So no pressure, Marshall. Man, the way you described it, right? But it is. There's a lot of centers in IBM. There are a lot of sales folks to engage. And so we've, through the years kind of built up our virtual Rolodex, if you will. And there's nothing wrong with a good old email that advertises a solution. There is, we've built internally for internal use a website that's pretty amazing in terms of featuring our solution catalog. It's really like the core of what it is that we do, and wanting to share that intellectual capital and the expertise of our folks with the IBM at large. And so whether they're focused on industry or whether they're focused on a particular strategic initiative, they can, by a few clicks, be served up exactly what they need in order to potentially leverage with a customer or engage us and leverage. And so that's been great from a traditional perspective. From a more creative perspective, we have created sizzle reels, if you will, featuring our center, some great photography. We continue to piece by piece, step by step, update and enhance. And it's not just for the sake of beauty, but it's for the sake of functionality, for the sake of, we've done a ton of design thinking and so sessions. And so what does our business need to move forward and to really, be effective and engage. And then we do have some content that really describes for internal audiences what we're doing from, for instance, a content management system, because we do have an operations system that's integrated into the content management system, and that the content then gets pushed out to many digital endpoints, and it's a pretty sophisticated setup, and one that we've enjoyed working with Signet to create. And I've become a little bit of an evangelist for content management in the company, and kind of networking through and really making sure that anyone that wants to know more can know more.
Yeah, Keeley, I think that's really powerful, the way that you've made that center so customized for every conversation. And there's really no better way to demonstrate that than by creating some of your own media, which you've done an impressive job pulling together. I think that's a lot of programs could never imagine producing some of the content that you've actually architected and pulled together to help promote what it is that you're doing. And what's impressive is how frequently you're changing that up, how fast you're moving and keeping up with the rest of the brand. So I've got some follow-ups here a little bit further on in our conversation. I don't want to steal your thunder there, but yeah, thank you for that. Very valuable. So you're standing out in this very busy landscape, like we said, and on the other side of the equation, we've got Stacey, who's really having to to define what the program is at all, to garner that support from internal teams and let people know that she's even there, right? So Stacey, you've been grinding lately. You've been hitting the pavement. You've been getting in front of all these different teams to communicate what it is that you're up to and how you can help them. So talk to me about some tactical things that you're actually doing. Who are you talking to? What are you talking to them about? Tell me what you've been up to really garner that support.
Yeah, hitting the pavement, making some noise. So one of the first things I did when we did have that transition to virtual, it was definitely an opportunity. So I created, virtual roadshow. I'm sure a lot of folks did that. And I went out, initially started at the VP level in our sales organization and got on, a call with the team. And what I really found was that at that level, there were so many people on the call. It was their weekly touch base call, and there just wasn't a lot of interaction. And I'm sure there was probably a lot of multitasking. So I went down a level within the org to the district managers and started with the US. I reached out to every single district manager, asked for 5 to 10 minutes on their weekly call with their teams. Of course, they were all more than happy to have that once they found out that, yes, we still do have an EBC program. It's really, successful, just as impactful. And, I always share the ABPM multi-client metrics, multi-client study metrics with them, and they love that, especially at that leadership level. So I really started with that virtual roadshow and really got on with each of the teams. And I had a standard presentation, which talked about the virtual offering, what's different from an in-person offering, gave them some guidance on strategy and how to position this with their customers, what the value is. I gave them guidance on structuring the agenda. We do 2-hour engagements, maybe multiple 2-hour engagements over a couple days. So again, that looks different. They need to rethink their strategy there. Just gave them some tips and tools that they could use. How do you reach the EBC? Where's the internet? Just those sorts of things. And then best practices on presenting virtually and just best practices for facilitating a briefing overall. So that was wildly successful. I saw a huge uptick just in the number of briefings. And so that was very successful. So that was one way to build awareness. And I think someone said long ago to me at an ABPM conference, you start at one end of the world and then you do your roadshow and then you start all over again, because they're sales reps. They have a lot of information thrown at them. So you have to stay front and center with them constantly. So because we were preparing for this, Marshall said, sure, we're a scrappy startup company. So, getting scrappy with that, looking at every opportunity, leaving no stone unturned. So another option is getting on the all hands calls. So particularly our global sales all hands, really paying attention, what's going on in the company, what deals are they promoting? So when our CRO had said, okay, these are the top 4 deals we're focusing on for this quarter, they don't have EBC scheduled yet. So I gave those reps a call and we got those scheduled, because that should have been happening. So again, still building that awareness, your metrics and, anecdotes from the reps. Those are your best selling tool to promote your program and build that awareness. People love to see that. And it's, like I said, once they start seeing those stats, they're easy to digest. That again, great promotional tool. I've also partnered with organizations such as sales operations. So they do a lot of our new hire sales training. So getting in front of those groups. And if we're not able to do that live, I recorded what they call a learning burst. So it's an on-demand presentation, the presentation I might have given them in person. So that's always available to them. And then just, getting on partner newsletters. We do partner briefings as well. So anytime you get content in front of folks, like I make sure that I'm a part of that when there's a call for content. Some of the other just creative fun things, we have a customer advocacy platform. So customers can go on and it's gamified. So they go in and they get points for completing certain challenges. So I created an EBC challenge. So they make a request and they get certain points just for the request. And then once they have actually completed a briefing, they get a large amount of points and they can take those points and get training, get gift cards, that sort of thing. So that's been fun. It's given a lot of inroads to some reps that, one rep didn't realize there were issues in his account. And this one customer had said, hey, yeah, I have all these things going on. And I'd love to get some attention there. So he was pretty thrilled to hear about that. So that's been great. And then just working with other parts, for example, I've always had great success with the CTO teams at every company I've been at. And just most recently at Cohesity, we need to scale who can deliver our mission and vision. And we've just rebranded. So the CTO team reached out and said, hey, you hear all of our execs present this. Can you help us get better at this and get on point and perhaps record some of those so that they can get up to speed pretty quickly. And then of course I said, yes, and you're going to support the EBC program as well. So, just like I said, any opportunity, consider your audience, consider how they like to digest the information. Just little things like my CMO said, clearly, I don't like email, I like Slack. So whenever I need to communicate something to her and get that awareness, if there's a big win, I Slack it to her. So those are just some of the fun things that I've done recently and in past companies.
Impressive, Stacey. Leaving no stone unturned, I think, is putting it lightly there. I mean, you're really going high and low, and really, as a sales guy, that kind of rings very true, right? I mean, you've got to be where your audience is. You've got to speak their unique vocabulary if you want it to resonate with them, and it's not necessarily going to take the first time. So what really stands out to me about what you're saying there is really the brazen confidence that you're bringing to the conversation. You're not afraid to get in front of these teams and tell them how it is that you're going to help them do their job better. And that's impressive. And I think there's probably a lot of people in the audience saying, oh gosh, I can never do that. I don't want to get in front of these teams. I don't have to talk to that role about what it is that I do. You're shaking about it, right? But if we kind of trace this back to our first two topics about the value proposition and then proving the value proposition, it really becomes a pretty straightforward conversation. So I think you've done an awesome job of kind of consolidating that experience that you bring to the table and being able to communicate that in a way that's really going to resonate with those different audiences and understanding what's important to each of those groups and communicating it clearly. So I know that's really important for some of the audience and a challenge to throw down for everybody in the audience to try to keep up with what you're doing there at Cohesity. So Ryan, you're the last up on this one again. Sorry to keep you at the end there, but I really want to, our next topic here, I definitely want to get your perspective on. So as far as this topic, maybe give me some highlights here about what we're talking about here and how these are, when we're talking about awareness and recognition, these are marketing fundamentals, right? So with your background and experience, talk to me about how you'd suggest a program goes out and gets the support they need and the recognition they need from the internal teams.
So I loved your points. Actually, you summed it up. Leaving no stone unturned. Stacey made some great points about the personal outreach, and actually, that's what I wanted to touch on. Right? Was making sure you make those personal connections. Go talk to your regional VPs. Go talk to your district sales directors. Right? Go tell them the power of the briefing center and the close rates. Those are things that are really, really compelling to them. And to your point, actually, if there are people that have trouble kind of going, oh gosh, I don't want to go talk to marketing, or I don't want to go talk to, these large groups of salespeople, or I don't want to go to sales all hand, you know what? It's a lot easier to talk to one person than many. So start with the individuals. Go have those individual meetings. Just make them with the key people, right? Because those people can then go and turn on, and start to make those connections in the briefing centers and start to bring their clients in. One of the things I've seen at every company is you always have kind of a group of characters or a group of salespeople that are always in the EBC. They're always working that angle because they've found that it works, right? And the more people that end up finding and seeing that it works, the better. One other point, which is really kind of an interesting one, is get your executives or get your key people out to peer level other EBCs or even competing EBCs. If you can get into them and go and get a sneak peek, take Marshall up on those opportunities to go visit other briefing centers, other ones that maybe not even in your industry, right? Just to go see what they're doing and see what kind of client experience they're providing. Those are so powerful and they're so moving for executives or for anybody, because when they see what other people are doing and what maybe some of their clients are getting exposed to, it's very compelling and makes them either want to go and build up their briefing center or go and use their briefing center.
So true. It's really an arms race, especially in our neighborhood, that's for sure. So want to quickly recap that for the audience here. So some great actionable takeaways that we've reviewed today. So just running through those real quickly. So those personal connections, nurturing those internal relationships, marketing, brand, and product teams, and not being afraid to have those conversations, up and down the food chain as far as those roles, going high, going low, really getting in front of those stakeholders face to face if you can, or the best we could do virtually at least. Sales kickoffs, user groups, all hands, these are all opportunities to promote your program. Asking for a slot to talk at the new hire onboarding for sales teams about what it is that you do is a simple way to get the message out there, and then backing that up with references and case studies about how you've influenced the deals, introducing opinions and references from other salespeople that have been effective within the program, I think is really powerful. We we did this here, and we can do that for you too. Keeley, talking about developing content, those videos, websites, brochures, whatever it might be, getting the message out on all those internal channels, whether it's Slack or email newsletters, using everything at your disposal to communicate the value of what it is that you do. Make sure that people know, they're not going to know if you don't tell them. So you've got to raise your voice a little bit and put your foot down and make sure they know about the great work that you're doing. And finally, fear can be an effective tactic, benchmarking against your competitors out there in the space, an arms race, like I say. So take your leadership to see what your competitors are doing. There's nothing that really creates an action like showing somebody adjacent to you in your space about how they might be doing it bigger and better than your program is. That's really an undeniable point there. So I think this is powerful stuff, guys. Thanks for all this really actionable and tactical advice that we can bring to the audience. So moving along here, I'm really excited about this last question in terms of alignment with the rest of the business. So we've been hearing a lot about consolidation across a lot of programs, a lot of movement under marketing relative to previous years, a lot of movement to kind of standardize and consolidate leadership of the client program across many different brands and organizations. So I think understanding some of the how we fit into those organizations, those pillars of the business, and really start to think like they do. So I want to talk about engaging those teams and really leveraging what they're producing in terms of the marketing and brand collateral to make sure that your program is at the forefront of what we're doing, what the brand is doing, I should say. So I talked to some programs that are years behind the latest messaging. Their logo is not up to date in the reception area, or they're showing commercials from a couple of years ago. And then other programs like Keeley's are, in lockstep with what's happening. So Keeley, you've got a really interesting opportunity with IBM. One of the most recognizable brands that ever was, period. So you may be a little bit lucky in that regard, but that machine is producing so much content. You're a title sponsor of things like the Wimbledon tennis tournament. You're running Super Bowl ads and things like that. So talk to me a little bit about how you actually track on what's happening in the IBM world and can pick out what's going to be valuable for your program to help position your program and keep it, keep up with the rest of the brand communication efforts in your center.
Right. Well, Marshall, I really think that it boils down to networking, and it's a lot to wrap your arms around, because there is a lot of content that's being created. I was fortunate enough just a week or so ago to have a nice conversation with the brand manager in charge of Think, one of our big conferences, probably the biggest one. And just not only what do you have that I might leverage, but also, hey, when you're coming up with your requirements, could we consider how we might be able to leverage some of this in the space? So, is the content open? Is it available? And can I slide it into my flexible content management strategy? And so to me, the core of the idea is networking and being able to bring it into the rotation along with the other content that I've created, or that is kind of always fresh in my mind, in terms of I've got some content that keys off of IBM's social media platforms. I mean, you name a platform, IBM is there with multiple handles. And so I have kind of an always fresh chapter, if you will, that leverages that. So that's one way where you don't even have to network. Once that's set up, it's always looks great. So there's a lot of ways to, I think, not only, you engage the IBM folks to, the brand folks to make sure you have the content, but then if your strategy is flexible, it really helps in terms of solidifying it, and kind of, when someone comes to the center, the point is not only do we not have black screens, the content is up to date and looking good. The final thought here is we do have an 18-month roadmap, and that roadmap that we use with our executives to say, hey, let's put in our plan for next year, X amount of dollars to create a little bit of content. So then you check with the brand what's happening campaign wise, and then you move forward and execute on that plan. So that's really how we've done it.
And yes, you have, best in class, to say the least. Impressive stuff, Keeley. So I want to go right to Ryan here. We're approaching the top of the hour, and so I want to go right to Ryan as a marketer to talk about some actionable strategies that those in the audience can actually put into place. So talk to me about alignment with the brand and the marketing organization, and how we can leverage those investments and what they're doing to create a better experience for our customers and ultimately drive more business.
Sure, I love this question actually, because this is totally in my world, right? So, personal interaction, personal outreach, oftentimes the marketing teams, the brand teams, the content teams, they'll help you. But, in the event that that you don't want to go to them, or maybe they don't have enough time or something like that, go use the website, right? A lot of things are already categorized on the website by industry, by product. There's tons and tons of marketing content. Actually, Proofpoint is we do about $1 billion in revenue a year, and we spend millions and millions and millions of dollars, like most companies do, on marketing, right? We're creating a ton of different assets, whether it be content, actual in-depth, detailed product type of content, all the way to commercials that are running on, local TV stations or even Super Bowl ads in Keeley's case, right? So there's all kinds of stuff that's already being produced. Don't go overcomplicate it. Go leverage what the strong marketing arms of your companies are already producing. Quick little story, back in the Juniper days, and part of why I was airdropped in there was, the teams had spent a lot of money on some kind of custom content stuff that never actually worked and never saw the light of day. So it got to the point where it was too complicated to run and really get moving. So we got brought in, and I took a look and said, hey, we spent millions of dollars on all these other content pieces and commercials and videos and ads and all kinds of things. And we started to bring those to life very, very quickly because they were already made. So that would be the point I would make, is go tap your marketing teams, go tap the website, go tap all these other different, sometimes there's digital asset managers or content management systems that house all this stuff in there. There's a lot out there to go tap.
Awesome, Ryan. Well said overall. I think that's really powerful and going to be important for the audience to hear about keeping it simple. There's a lot of content that's available out there. You just have to go and get it and find out how it fits into your strategy. So summarizing some of that, a lot to digest there. I want to kind of recap what resonated with me and what I think is important to kind of restate for everybody in the audience. Really, monitoring these channels that are already existing. The marketing, the brand team, they're doing a ton of work. They're investing a lot, as Ryan said, millions of dollars at most organizations in the group that we're talking to today. So check out what's happening in social media. Maybe you can use that through an integrated approach to actually drive content in real time within your program, or just to be aware of what's happening in the business. Take advantage of what's happening on the website. It's already neatly categorized by industry or by customer type, but there's a lot to be gained there, and it's already been done. Developing those relationships, obviously, to know what's going on, maybe a little bit of the insider perspective there. That's going to be very important. But importantly, those teams have done a lot of work already. They've defined the tone and the vision and the brand already. And it's important that we don't feel that we need to reinvent the wheel necessarily when it comes to content creation and what we put in front of our customers. So I think, fundamentally here, it's understanding how that fits into our strategy, but then adopting systems and an approach that will allow you to incorporate that into your content strategy overall. So being able to leverage the investments that the marketing and brand are doing, that take those millions of dollars that they've already spent and figure out how we slot that into our environment, and a platform that's going to allow you to do that across virtual, hybrid, and on-site engagements is really going to be a necessary tool as we go forward. So keeping that alignment with the business and making sure that you're really speaking the same language as the rest of the brand. We're all part of the big same family as far as the enterprise that we represent, and there's no reason why the customer center needs to be on an island as far as the story and the message that they're portraying to customers. So guys, we're here at the top of the hour, maybe a couple minutes over even. So I want to move to wrap things up here. I want to thank everybody on the panel. I know that this has been so informative and valuable for me here at Signet, and I know our audience feels the same way. So I'm just so excited to talk to you guys today. It's great to see everybody. I wish it could be in person, but thank you so much for your time. Great to see you. Talk soon, guys. So moving right along here, I've got a couple of things I need to review. So at Signet, we're all about the gifts and the giveaways for our events. If we didn't do it, people will be asking why we haven't. So real quick here, we'll follow up with you if you've had to drop from the call already. We appreciate you staying over if you're still with us. But wanted to announce a few winners today for our giveaway. We'll be following up with you direct, but wanted to just call out a few people selected at random. This is something we do for every event. So let's see here. We've got Mona, Char, and Joshua. Char, how did you won our ABPN thing? Must be lucky. We're excited that you guys are here. Thanks for joining us. We'll be following up to share with you. And everybody will be following up with to make sure that you get this content after the fact so you can review it with your teams and share it. A lot of wisdom that we covered here today. So UPLevel family, thank you so much for being here. This is another great event. I'm excited for 2021, and I just want to leave you with a quote that I've been thinking about a lot this year from Winston Churchill. Never let a good crisis go to waste. So it's been a weird year, but I think I know at Signet it's created a lot of opportunities for us to examine our process and what we're doing and think about how we can come stronger into the new year. And I'm confident that as an industry, it's going to be a breakout year for this, all of our programs overall. Can't wait to see what we build together next. Let's talk soon. Thanks.